So what's good everyone, it's Coach Abrish here back again with another banger about how we transformed our entrepreneur clients in 30-minute workouts. Alright, it might sound impossible, but let's get into it. But before we get into it, let me quickly introduce myself. For those who haven't seen me talking yet, I'm Abrish Babitz, founder of Mythical Gains, and our mission is to help at least 1,000 entrepreneurs until 2026 to add at least 40% to their business output, lose at least 30 pounds of fat, and gain more than 8 pounds of muscle. And our mission started with gentlemen like these below that you can see in the picture. And today I'm going to talk about how we achieve this kind of transformation in the least time possible. So how did Joao lose 50 pounds in 6 months with 30-minute workouts? How did we do 60 pounds weight loss for Benjamin in 5 months? How did we do 15 pounds of lean muscle gain in less than 3 months for Hunter? And how we did 34 pounds of fat loss and 10 pounds of lean muscle added in 6 months for Silas, meanwhile growing their businesses, enhancing their energy levels and their sleep. So you might think that you need a lot of time for it, and you have kids, you have family to take care of, you're too busy, and so on and so on. And as an entrepreneur, it's just not a fit for your lifestyle. So I brought you a quick breakdown and still a quite detailed breakdown of how this process works and how these beliefs that you're holding right now are actually not true. And it's very easy to make it work for you. And if you copy paste the system for your lifestyle, you can pretty much achieve the same transformation as my clients did. But of course, with some external guidance, it's much easier to keep yourself accountable. But listen to this video, take notes, and not just use it, but abuse it. Use it to your own advantage, because I want to help you. I want to get you to that level where no one needs to hold your hand anymore, because you can automate your health. Okay, how do we do that? First of all, we really need to break your excuses. So instead of I have no time, you should say I make time for it. Because let's be honest, you have the same 168 hours per week as everyone else, right? So if you can't really cut out 2 to 3 hours of that to take care of your health, then you really need to reevaluate your priorities. And I'm not saying this to tell you off, but think about it. Your health is not a priority until you lose it, but suddenly nothing else matters, just your health. But if you want to avoid these kind of emergency situations, even when you are young or younger than you should have these kind of problems, then definitely you need to make time for it and focus on efficiency. So getting the most out of the least time available. So your attitude shouldn't really be like, I don't have time. My day-to-day is too busy, but I make time for it. So let's say I have a client right now, for example. He does only 15-minute like blitzkrieg workouts for each muscle group every morning as soon as he jumps out of bed. Why? Because it's important to him and he makes the time for me. He doesn't have time for 1 hour, 2 hour long super hardcore powerlifting workout, and neither should you. What you should focus on is really, as I said, getting the most shit done in the least amount of time possible, getting the most bang for your buck. And really, if you look at your day-to-day and you think you're too busy, always check your screen time, right? Because a couple of years ago when I started building, I started helping people, I started helping entrepreneurs to improve their health, I really wasn't really scaling this business, I wasn't really scaling this vision before I discovered that, okay, my time that I spend on this per day could be much leaner, because out of the several hours I spent on social media, actually a screen tracker showed me that more than 2 hours of that was just mindless scrolling. And you know, when you discover that, damn, I have like 2 extra hours per day and I only have to spend like 1/4 of that, 25% of that, literally just 30 minutes of that per day on working out, then suddenly it makes more sense that, wow, I have more time for my family, more time to effectively allocate on my business. So actually, fitness is not something which takes away from your time, actually it adds to it. And once you make this realization, everything becomes so much easier. So let's get into it. If you might say that it's just not a fit for me, I'm kind of surprised, right? Because is being human not a fit for you, because we are ultimately designed to move and think. And respect to you because you already built a thriving business, so you know how to think. But you also need to know how to move because it's part of the human experience. And as I said before, it's not about being jacked, having thick six-pack abs, It's about having longevity. It's about having enough time to share this wealth that you are building with those people who you love, with the one who create your legacy, with your family, right? You still want to play with your grandkids. You still want to teach them how to bring the vision forward that you have started. So, what's better time to start improving your health than now, if you haven't done it so far, right? So, instead of saying that it's not a fit for me, you say that it is a fit for me because I make it a fit for me, right? So you don't necessarily have to think of fitness like a gym workout. You don't need to go to the gym. You can train at home. You can train outdoors. You can do calisthenics. You can do military style workouts. You can do whatever you want. So many different approaches, so many different forms of movements that you don't necessarily have to restrict yourself to gym workouts and always thinking of bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit and all this stuff. You're not an athlete. You shouldn't be following professional athlete routines, as you can see it over here. So it's not about doing 15, 20, 30 sets for biceps in a single workout, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger did, because obviously you're not Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're not a bodybuilder, but you can still look amazing, you can still acquire an impressive physique and a thriving health, looking younger than you are, and absolutely being energetic, focusing on the highest ROI activities in your business with full conviction, just like these guys over here. Just look at these physiques. None of them look unrealistic for you. None of them are those, steroid pumped bodybuilders, right? So you don't have to train like professional athletes to look like superheroes and demigods, right? So this is a belief that you definitely have to destroy in yourself if you want to be successful in this. So the next one, when you say, I have kids, I have family, and so on and so on and so on, so then involve them. So you shouldn't think of them as something that holds you back, but something that pushes you forward, right? Because ultimately, they are your motivation. You want to be a better husband, a better father, You want to be a better dad, a better family member, and you want to be the provider, the shelter. So you want to get in shape. So you want to get stronger so you can protect them. So you want to get more agile so you can actually protect them in critical situations. But God save you from that to happen. And also, what's really important, you want to live, you want to be alive as long as possible, but not only being alive, but actually living. So the difference between being alive and living is that you can live life to the fullest and you can function like a complete person. So you won't be a cripple by the end of your life. You won't be a burden, for your kids. You will be still their supporter, their shelter. And that's very important. That's why you should stay fit well in your 60s, 70s, and 80s as well. Because the longer you live and the longer you stay fit, the better it is for your kids, because the more time you can spend with them and for the longer you can provide for them and give them wisdom and guidance in life. So, and yeah, if you have any doubts about you cannot lose weight or gain muscle at about 40 or 50, well, let me prove you wrong. One of my clients are 53 years old, and in the first 6 weeks he lost 11 pounds body fat, so, and still kept it off. So it's not about how old you are, it's about how you think and what kind of smart, not necessarily hard, but smart effort you put into this game. So instead of thinking that your family holds you back and because of that you have less time and less motivation, no, your family pushes you forward. And if you feel that your family is one of your main motivations, then involve them in your workouts and show them that you care, show them that you can set their standards high, and you can work out together. You can go to the park together, you can go for a run together, you can go for a swim together, you can go and beat up the nearest child molesters together. Why? Because you're doing something useful and something fit and healthy at the same time. So, you can take them on walks, hikes, runs, workout sessions, it will only benefit them, because do you want the best for your kids, right? Obviously you want to. So why not take them with you to work out, right? Why not show them like what it looks like to set your standards high and to show a good example, because they will mimic your behavior. And the same goes for not only your children but also your wife, because through your knowledge that you're gaining about health and fitness, she will also mimic your behavior and start cooking that way, start moving that way, start taking up those healthy habits that you are taking up. So like doing this fitness and lifestyle transformation as a separate person from your family is not how it looks like to play the long-term game. If you're playing the long-term game, you definitely want to involve them, because at the end of the day, it's not like a 3 months or 6 months challenge. It's a series of healthy habits for a lifetime. So that's what you're aiming for. But if you might think that you don't feel confident in the gym, first of all, you don't have to go there, because I said before, there are so many different types of movements that you can implement, and there are so many different types of resistance training that you don't necessarily have to go to the gym to actually get a good workout in and to dial in your daily activity targets, right? But I understand why you might think that you are not so confident in the gym. But if you happen to go to the gym, you have to remember, that's why you go to the gym, because you don't feel confident, because you want to build yourself up. You want to get yourself through uncomfortable situation to end up being stronger and more confident and more energetic. Like, what did you do when you started your business? Probably when you started your business, you knew nothing about business, right? And you were committing mistakes. You were getting into really unexpected and maybe uncomfortable situations, right? But that made you grow. That made you grow your business. So your first 100 sales calls that you sucked at, suddenly on the 101st one, you got better. On the 200th one, you got even better. And at the end, you might have become an expert on it, or like a very experienced salesman, right? So that's how I can compare the confidence you build up from doing uncomfortable things and, a little bit like cringy things. You might think it's cringe, but it's absolutely not, because you have to realize that when you embrace the challenge and you realize that nobody gives a shit and the environment in the gym is absolutely supportive, that's the day when you become confident in the gym and you won't be uncomfortable with it anymore. So that's when you can dial in your form. You can start focusing on your form, because form is always number one. How you perform the exercises, because we want to maximize your performance without pain and without injuries. So, what's better? Giving it all, 120% for 2 months, then getting injured and not being able to train for 4 months, or just giving a comfortable, not so comfortable, but yeah, still hard, but not over pushing it like 80% consistently for 6 months and never have to worry about injuries, right? So I would say that's a much better and much sustainable approach to it. So if you forget about your anxieties in the gym and you stop ego lifting and trying to impress others with the weights that you're lifting, you could actually just go there, be chill, realize no one gives a fuck, everyone supports you, and start lifting weights that you can actually perform the exercises with a proper form. So that's why a coach is very important for your transformation, because who else will supervise your form if you don't know how the proper form looks like and you've never done that before. Most personal trainers in the gyms they are just counting reps, not really giving a shit about your form, because for them you're a customer, a good customer, if you keep coming back and not making progress, because you will eventually. But if you sign up with someone who actually gives a fuck about you and takes care of the form of the exercises and doesn't want to hold your hand forever, then that's when you can know for sure that you can stay accountable and you can build a physique that you always wanted. You can improve your health the way you wanted it, the way that suits you, without having to worry about getting injured, because I know most of you guys are not so confident in the gym in the beginning because you don't know how to properly lift the weights and how to properly do those dozens of different exercises that you might have in your workout plan. So absolutely understood your concerns, but that's why I'm here to tell you that these are not so valid if you think that the people there are hostile towards you and they are not supportive. No, everybody is supportive in the gym. And as long as you focus on your own form and you stop giving a fuck about what others think, you suddenly start progressing much faster. And I want you to progress. And if we end up working together, I don't want you to stay for too long, because it's not about it. It's about progress. It's about not coming back anymore, right? Not having to hold your hand. That's why it is very important to nail down the form at the beginning. So that's why it's important to forget about your excuses that you are not so confident in the gym in the beginning, because yeah, the more you think about this, the more you delay fixing your form, right? Because the more you will start ego lifting and doing things that yeah, you wouldn't necessarily do in the gym if you had the experience with it, right? Okay, but let's go forward. Let's go into the technical stuff. So how did these guys again achieve these transformations over here with only like 30-minute workout? So how do you do that? What is the structure? And how can you design a workout plan like this for yourself as well? Okay, let's get into it. So step 2, after we completely destroyed your excuses and your limitations, and I hope you're with me at this point as well, we will discuss frequency over volume. So what is frequency? So frequency is how often you train a certain muscle group. So how many chances you give to that muscle to grow per week. So I would say ideally, if you're a natural athlete with moderate volume, you can hit each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week, because your protein synthesis doesn't last as long as for an athlete or as for a gym goer who uses steroids. But of course, if you want to live long and you want to keep your longevity and you want to be healthy for an extended period of time, you don't have to, or you don't even need to think about taking steroids, because at the end of the day, natural muscle is much more appreciated, of course. And in my opinion, that's just worth more if you are not an athlete. So for your everyday life, you can completely build an impressive physique and create a thriving health naturally without the use of steroid. But then it's much beneficial to train your muscles much more frequently, but with less volume. You don't have to spend hours in the gym. So in that regard, you have to find the ideal split for you. And for that, majority of my clients use these 2 splits down there. So either an upper lower full, which means that on day 1 you're training upper body, day 2 you're training lower body, and day 3 you are training full body. So each muscle is being hit twice per week with 50% of the normal weekly volume. Weekly volume is the sum of the total workload that you have to do a week to get a muscle grow. So that's simple. Or the other split that you can use, and my clients use as well, is full body 3 times a week. Full A, full B, and full C, with different variations, different exercises. So really moving through all the muscle fibers of the human body 3 times per week, with only 33%, like 1/3 of the total weekly volume. So kind of like 5 to 10 minutes per muscle group. It's not that difficult, right? So it's not about how long you train, it's how hard you train, right? Because the harder you train, the less you can train. Just like the faster you run, the less distance you can run. Just like comparing, as I said 100 times before, comparing a marathon runner to a sprint runner. And when it comes to building muscle, you definitely want to take up the sprint running mindset. For example, when you do a sprint in your business or at your workplace. So when you are really focusing on a project and everything is being pushed to the side and one focus is there, one goal is there to finish the project to the highest quality possible in the shortest amount of time possible. That's what intensity means. And now we can go to our next topic, and the next step that we want to discover is intensity over volume. So we already talked about frequency over volume. So it's not about how many sets or how much time you spend training each muscle group, but how frequently you train them, how many chances per week do you give them to actually grow. But the next step will be how intense, how hard you train them. What is the quality of that work you are doing, right? Because, if you think that time equals money and you are worth this much and this much per hour, then you're limiting yourself. You're putting a cap on your earning potential. But as an entrepreneur, you already know that that's not true, because it's about the value that you provide. And the same goes for your muscles. So it's not about how many hours, how many minutes you train. It's like actually how hard you hit it. So intensity can be a lot of different things, like how much do your muscles spend under tension in a single set? Or it could be how heavy is the weight you're lifting? How heavy is the mechanical pressure that your muscles feel during the movement? So for us, intensity will mean getting the most out of the least time available. So as I said before, getting the most bang for your buck. The goal is progressive overload, which means that every single week you want to increase the total volume a little bit, but not by adding an extra set or anything like that, but more like adding an extra rep to the same set, or adding some more weight to the same amount of sets and reps. So overall, your weekly volume will increase without your weekly workout time being increased. So this will lead to increased work capacity, because if you can withstand more intense sets, if you can withstand more pain, it means your muscles can get stronger because you have the potential to train harder on your next workout. What happens if you train harder on your next workout? Your muscles will get stronger. What is a stronger muscle? Obviously, a stronger muscle is a bigger muscle. That's why I say you can even gain muscle when you're losing weight. Why? Because fat burning doesn't entirely close out muscle building. Why? So essentially, you can get stronger meanwhile dieting and meanwhile being in a caloric deficit and so on, losing fat, and you can still put several pounds, let's say, on your bench press, on your squats, on your biceps curls, and so on. And that means that you got stronger. And if you got stronger, what that means? You got more muscle. That's simple. So a stronger muscle is always a bigger muscle. And that leads to faster metabolism. Because if you have more muscle mass in your body, that means that your BMR, basal metabolic rate, is higher. So even while you're not doing anything, your body burns more calories because it needs to sustain that muscle mass that you're already having, right? So that's the life hack. You're burning more calories, and ultimately you're burning more fat while eating the same amount of food. So that's definitely a life hack, but how you can get there is practicing intensity, so training as intense as possibly can, and as from what you can possibly recover from, because recovery is also very important. That's why we're focusing on sleep as well in the Demi Cycle Protocol. But ultimately, if you mix that with progressive overload, so you are training a little bit harder every single week, you're doing a little bit more every single week in terms of intensity, then you will get bigger muscles and faster metabolism. You can lose more fat. So that's why it goes hand in hand. That's why I say that, guys, please don't be too much hyper-focused on cardio workouts, because actually resistance training, like gym workouts or home workouts, bodyweight workouts, those are what really contribute to your weight loss and shaping up your body. Alright, but how do we increase intensity? Because, of course, I already mentioned a couple of tips and tricks that you can do, but here comes the real sauce. What kind of intensity enhancing techniques do we know? So, first of all, on each set, you want to go near failure, so almost a failure. You don't have to go to absolute failure at every set, but here comes a term called RIR, reps in reserve. So how many repetitions in each set do you leave in the tank? So for example, if I say, okay, you will be doing barbell rows, about 10 reps, 0 to 2 RIR, it means that 0 to 2 reps should be left in the tank for you at the end of each set. So if you really had to, you couldn't do any more reps, or maybe just 1 or 2. So you're very close to failure, but you are just not right there yet. So you don't have to completely destroy yourself, because if you train to failure every single set, well, you will have a couple of recovery issues, especially if you have several other things to focus on as you're an entrepreneur, right? So this is why we have reps in reserve. But sometimes, as you can see it over here, we are going fully until failure. So totally. Sometimes we go even beyond failure. Why? Because we want to move every single muscle fiber. We want to involve every single muscle fiber, and we want to give them as much mechanical pressure as possible. There's a common misconception which was debunked by science several times before, that you're actually damaging, building down the muscle, you are deconstructing it. Well, this is partially true, but what really matters is muscles grow because of mechanical tension. So the more mechanical tension they receive, the more incentive they get for growing. So that's so simple. And but what is mechanical failure? Because that's a third type of intensity enhancing technique that we are doing. Mechanical failure means that from the same movement you cannot really do one more rep. So you feel like you have failed, but actually you haven't really moved all of the possible muscle fibers in that certain muscle group that you are training right now. So what does that mean? You immediately can start training from another angle, with another exercise. So getting an extra round in, moving those muscle fibers from those angles that haven't been touched yet. So for example, here are the supersets. Supersets come in two different versions. So one of them is the antagonist protagonist, and the other one is the single muscle. So how can you set this up for yourself, and how does that look? So a superset is doing two exercises right after each other without rest in between. So you only rest once you're done with both of the exercises. And it can either go for the same muscle group, for example, a bicep superset with bicep curls, like let's say easy bars, and standing easy bar curls and reverse curls. This could be a bicep superset. Or you can do an arms superset, so a bicep tricep superset, because that's an antagonist protagonist. The antagonist will be the tricep, the protagonist will be the biceps. So you're pumping out, let's say 12 hammer curls for each arm, and then you're going for the push down machine. You're doing rope tricep push downs, 15 repetitions, going on to total burnout. So you pumped your biceps and your triceps separately, ultimately saving time for yourself, working out twice as fast as, let's say, Arnold Schwarzenegger. That sounds good, right? So most of the gym bros who are doing like 15 sets for biceps, 15 sets for triceps, and they want to finish before the school bell rings, sometimes even they do supersets. So you as an entrepreneur who really are scheduled by your meetings, by your sales calls, board meetings, and so on and so on. So there are so many different events in your calendar that you really need to dial in your workouts, and you go there and you leave as soon as possible. I can completely understand you. I really recommend using supersets, because in this way you can work out two muscle groups on the same limb, possibly, at the same time. So for example, biceps and triceps supersetted together is very effective. Hamstrings and quads supersetted together with, for example, leg extensions and leg curls is very effective. But some people, you don't necessarily have to go for your limbs, some people even superset back with chest. That gives you a huge bump, great advantage for improving your posture and expanding your grip cage. So ultimately, you can be a more masculine, more respected man by your team. You can get more frame, and ultimately that makes you more persuasive on sales calls and on different events, on public speeches. So doubling down on chest and back supersets could be a really high ROI business advantage for you. But let's get back to other techniques, because superset is not the only technique that you can use in this case if you want to increase intensity and save time in the gym. Because with supersets, you can, let's say, save 50% time. That's not bad, but with trisets, you can save 3 times as much time. So you can reduce your gym time to 33%, what the average person does, if you're using trisets, right? Because in trisets, so in trisets, you are either training the same muscle group with 3 different exercises in one triset. So for example, you are doing tricep push downs, tricep overhead extensions, and then tricep dips for your triceps, completely destroying your triceps. And let's say you are doing 3 rounds of this in like 7 minutes, which means that you have actually done 9 sets for triceps in 3 sets. right? In 3 sets time, you have already done 9 sets. How amazing it sounds. And of course, it is painful. It is super intense. But ultimately, this is what increases your work capacity. And this is what increases intensity, and this is what makes your muscles grow faster than anyone else in the gym. So this is what you should go for, not infinite volume. Don't think of fitness as a zero-sum game that you either go to the gym for 2 hours or you're not going at all. No, you can completely destroy one single muscle group if you want in 10 minutes. So some of my clients are even doing that, and some of my clients prefer supersets, but we can also talk about one of their favorites, the giant sets. Of course, giant sets shouldn't necessarily go for one muscle groups, and that's true for, as I mentioned before, supersets, and actually that's true for triceps as well. So you can put different muscle groups right after each other. So imagine that you had an assistant, an executive assistant who is good at everything. So let's say he or she is good at handling your emails, following up with people in your CRM, closing calls, that would be amazing, and also service delivery. So these 4 functions in one person. So that's how a giant set looks like. 4 different muscle groups executed for full efficiency in one single set. So how do we do that? So in a giant set, let's say you are doing 1 bicep curl, 1 tricep extension, then side raises for your delts or some kind of press variation for your delts. And then you pick another muscle group, like for example your rear delts, you're doing face pulls, and you're doing several rounds of this. Like actually 3 to 5 rounds of this should be completely enough to pump up your upper body, and you can just leave the gym and you return next time for another session, maybe 2 to 3 days later when you're completely recovered. So here's the thing. This is how you can put together these kind of maximum 30-minute workouts for yourself without having to worry about any kind of lagging muscle group or not progressing enough, because if you're training with this intensity, there is no possible way you're not making progress if you're raising your standards just a little bit every single week. And one more extra thing I wanted to mention over here is drop sets, because drop sets are kind of like an odd one out here, because drop sets always go for only one muscle group, but they are super powerful because in a one single drop set you can kill an entire muscle group. So we usually do that for, you can do this for smaller muscle groups, like for example triceps, but you can do it for big muscle groups as well. For example, your quads and your hamstrings, with doing leg extensions or for example leg curls. And a drop set means that you start doing an exercise at a certain weight, and you are doing a certain amount of reps until mechanical failure, and then you drop the weight. You're doing it again until you completely fail, and then you drop the weight again. So you're always training with smaller and smaller weights without rest. And let's say you are doing a drop set with 5 steps. That means you're doing 5 sets in the time of 1. So you're reducing your workout time for the same muscle group to 20%. So let's say you want to completely kill your quads. You are so sadistic with yourself that next day you don't want to be able to walk up the stairs. Of course, sometimes you have to bear some soreness if you really want progress, but soreness, just keep in mind, is not an indicator of progress. This is something that happens in your muscles, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen to make progress. So if you're not sore the other day, good for you, but your recovery is amazing. But just make sure that your training is hard enough. So when you're doing drop sets, for example, for your quads, and you're doing leg extensions, let's say you're doing 1 times 8 repetitions with 150 pounds. Very good. Good job, man. Then you're dropping down the weight to 120 pounds. You are doing 10 reps with it. Alright, let's drop it down to 100 pounds. You're doing 12 reps. Okay, let's drop it down to 50. You're doing 15 reps. Okay, let's drop it down to only 20 pounds. Please, hold on, bro. Alright, with 20 pounds you're going until 18 to 20 reps. So you're completely burning out the muscle. And wow, you're finished with your quad workout for the day. So goodbye. That's it. So very easy, very easy. And you can do the same for hamstrings as well. If you want to do it, you can do drop sets for your triceps. So it's really about leaving no muscle fiber unmoved. So it's about going nuts on intensity, and training intense doesn't necessarily have to mean the Mike Manser way, who's a famous bodybuilder. It shouldn't necessarily mean that way, that you are doing like 4 times 6 repetitions with super heavy weight. Of course, going heavy is super beneficial for you, because the heavier you go, the stronger your muscle is, the bigger your muscle is. It's absolutely true. But if you want to save time, you also have to consider using some of these methods. And it's very easy to learn these and to implement these in your workout plan. And you can infinitely customize it for yourself. But that's why it's very useful to have a coach with you who helps to find those movements which suit you the best, and find those types of sets that you can most efficiently implement in your workout plan. But just to recap a little bit on how we transformed our absolutely overbooked and busy entrepreneur clients, just like Joao, Benjamin, Hunter, and Silas, in the past year. How did we do that, and how did we do the same process for more than 40 entrepreneurs? Is very simple, with 30-minute workouts, and just simply, first of all, breaking your excuses. So you make the time for it. You make it fit for you, because it's part of the human experience, and you want to be embracing longevity, right? And you involve your family. You don't want to leave them out there, and you don't want to separate yourself from them. They are not a drawback. They are a motivation. They are an extra push for you. And you can feel confident in the gym once you realize no one gives a fuck about how you look, everyone supports you, and you can finally focus on the form, because form prevents injuries. So step 2, frequency over volume. So you want to train a little, but as frequently as possible. So as I say, move a little, sell a lot, because from short and quick bursts of movement you get more energy, more dopamine, and ultimately you feel more confident on sales calls. And it's very important for you as a business owner. So another thing that you might as well consider is to get the most efficiency out of each workout. Of course, you don't have to go to failure, so that's why I say you consider maximal intensity, but you don't have to go super crazy with that. So either you go near failure with reps in reserve, you go to failure, or you go to mechanical failure with these different intensity enhancing techniques. So for example, antagonist, protagonist supersets, single muscle supersets, trisets for the single muscle group, or many different muscle groups at the same time. Or you can go for giant sets, again, for either a single muscle, but that's not so common because it's super hard. So more like different muscle groups, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 5 giant sets are unlimited. You can do an entire full body or upper body session with giant sets. And you can also use drop sets if you want to kill a muscle group in 1 or 2 single sets. So this is what you can consider over here, and this is the ultimate system that you can actually grab for yourself, copy paste, customize it a little bit for yourself, and you can absolutely achieve the same realistic results as our clients did. So getting from fat and overweight and low energy to high energy, V-shaped, and with abs, that's entirely possible for you, no matter what your age is, no matter how many members your family has, no matter what kind of business you're running, because these people, these guys over here, they all had different backgrounds and they still made it happen. I know at the beginning it's not so easy to get rid of or replace your old and unhealthy habits, which are pulling you back a little bit. I know you might find it a little bit difficult at the beginning to train intense in the gym, and how to train there, or if you're not training in the gym, how to train at all. What does the proper nutrition looks like? How do you improve your sleep? So there are so many different factors that I know and I feel why you could be a little bit confused and why you think that actually it is hard. But no, with the right systems in place, just like the Demi Cycle Protocol, you can easily just knock out these obstacles from your way, and you can go smooth and lean, and you can transform yourself in less than 2 to 3 hours per week. If you're interested in hearing more how would it work and how could that work for you, feel free to book a call in the description below with us or send us a direct message on either Instagram or Twitter. I hope you enjoyed it. Have an amazing day.